Welcome aboard the Giddy Carousel of Pop, a podcast all about the brilliant pop mag smash hits. And what we do is take an old issue, usually from the 80s, although we may slide a year or two either side of that and have a good poke around its pages with a guest, who could be a pop kid, someone who worked on the mag, and with any luck, you never know, maybe even a pop star who appeared on its pages. I'm Simon Galloway, and with me is the chirpy chap himself, Mr. Gavin Hogg.
All right, Si, how am ya? All right.
All right, thank you. Yourself?
Very well, thank you for asking, yes.
Lovely to hear that. So you got a few hellos and shout-outs?
Yes, I have. I tweeted a bit earlier on today, and I just said, if anyone wants a mention in our preamble, they should retweet us, and we had 5 retweets. So thank you very much to the following people for retweeting. We've got Viva Lynn, Laura Walkerdine, Rich Goodall, Tim Ward and Jim C. So thanks to those lovely people. And maybe I could just say a few hellos to a few other Twitter followers, some of our recent ones. Too many to mention, but Bethan Roberts, hello to you. Thank you for following. Tim Difford, Derek O'Reilly, John McCabe and Shirley Ann Lloyd. And everyone else who's not been mentioned, thank you. Always lovely to get a bit of communication on the Twitters, isn't it?
It's very nice indeed. We are also on Facebook and Instagram as well, but we'll tell you about that in due course. So it's about time we welcomed our special guest waiting in an orderly queue to join us on the carousel for some volitional reconsumption. That's volitional reconsumption. It's a big hello to pop kid Catherine Sked. Hello.
Hello there.
Thank you for agreeing to come on and talk about smash hits.
My pleasure.
Now, the carousel has taken us back to the 4th to the 17th of November 1987, which Kath has picked out for us, with U2 on the cover. Quite frankly, looking a bit bored, although I'm not sure if that was the effect they were going for. And if you want to read along with us, you can do just that thanks to a couple of amazing websites, Brian McCloskey's Like Punk Never Happened or Smash Hits Remembered. And we've done all the hard work for you. You'll find links to the scans of this issue in the show notes, along with Spotify and YouTube playlists that include pretty much all the songs and artists featured in this thrill-packed issue of The Hits on our website, giddypoppod.home.blog. And you'll also find these links on our Twitter and Facebook feeds. Just search for the Giddy Carousel of Pop or at Giddy Pop Pod. So before we clamber aboard the carousel, let's find out what each of us was up to in November 1987. Kath?
I was 16. I was just heading into the 6th form at Marple Ridge High School, doing my A-levels and enjoying school, enjoying music, enjoying my friends, just having a lovely time. Music-wise, it was a transition period for me. I was moving from mainstream, I would say, leaving behind the music that was on Top of the Pops and, you know, that everybody listened to, with a desire very much to be a little bit different. So quite hungry for anything that was, you know, not going to be on mainstream television. Watching the chart show, you know, finding out what was on was the Tube still around in 87?
It finished in 87, yeah.
Yeah. So anything like that. I mean, my friends at school were a massive influence as well. Two people especially. A girl who was my closest friend and my boyfriend at the time who had a mobile disco. He was a DJ. And he had an encyclopedic knowledge of music, even at 17 years old. Because, you know, he's in the upper 6th, obviously.
Yeah.
You go for an older boyfriend, don't you, when you're in the 6th form? So, it was a really exciting period in music for me.
So what bands did you discover? Who did you get into at that time in your transition period?
There was a massive explosion of indie music that I was really into. The Sugar Cubes were huge for me. First time I heard Birthday, it just totally blew me away. But, you know, the Smiths, Lloyd Cole, the House Martins, even a little bit of goth-type music. Yeah. I liked a bit of Sisters and The Cure I absolutely loved. It was basically somebody brought a record, as we called it then. We didn't say vinyl, did we?
No.
People brought records into school and we were all hungry to find out, you know, where they got them from and, you know, 12 inches with unusual tracks on the B-side and all that. It was just so exciting.
Well, you showed us a photo earlier on of your common room from school, didn't you?
Yes.
You had a record player in the common room, which
we did.
I think certainly not my experience. We had a ghetto blaster. So how did that work? Did you kind of if people brought in records, was there a bit of a pecking order, or was it just a free-for-all? Or
It was a bit like, what's that programme Dara O'Brien does on television, where the comedians all get down from Mock the Week, when the comedians get off the step and the next person's down to get in there. It was like that. You'd be waiting for somebody's record to finish, and then because you were allowed one track each, and then somebody else would go up. But there was a tacit understanding that you didn't sort of take too many goes. And then obviously lunch times and break times, but as soon as you played music during school time, proper school time, Mr. Salt, whose office was directly next to the sixth form common room, would march in and get cross with us all, and I'm trying to teach a lesson. So it was a good laugh.
Yeah, bit of Zodiac mind warp pounding through the walls or something.
Psycho candy. Never understand. Full blast.
So was that one of your main ways of listening to new things or getting turned on to new things?
Yes.
Yeah.
We all understood that we weren't bringing in anything mainstream. Some people kind of bucked the trend and would walk in with Bros and put it on and, it's my right to play Bros. You all get to play the sun and the moon,
Yeah.
Let's shake it up a bit, but it was frowned upon. Definitely frowned upon.
So I guess by the time you're at sixth form, Smash Hits is starting to kind of fade out from your life, and it's the weekly inkies that are coming in instead.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, it was very poppy, wasn't it, Smash Hits? And that was, for me, I felt I'd left pop behind. And then Enemy stepped in. You're either Enemy or Melody Maker at school. I was an Enemy person. Yeah, and that was, about 87, I would say that happened.
Well, very similar really to Kath in many ways. I was more Enemy than Melody Maker, although I did buy them both quite often, but if I only got one, it would generally be the Enemy. And by this point, I did actually get this issue of Smash Hits, but I had stopped having it on order probably about 6 months before. But being a big U2 fan, I think that was what kind of drew me in, and I bought this issue. Also, it had the Smiths in there as well. So I had the poster, the little picture of Morrissey with the motorbike behind him, I had up on my wall from this issue. And also what you were saying about the common room, I had a similar thing. I was in my second year at sixth form. And when I was at school, the mates that I had weren't really into music. And the ones that did like a bit of music had pretty bad taste. They were all kind of into Marillion and frigging Queen, and stuff like that. Not that I mind a little bit of that now and again, but that was kind of all they listened to. And I wasn't really into any of that. But then when I got to college and I met different people and some really interesting kind of arty kind of people that were into quite alternative and interesting music, some kind of more underground things. So like you, it was that kind of explosion of interest in those things. So I remember in our common room, it was quite a big space, and there were 4 very kind of distinct corners, and there were kind of musical tribes in there. So there was like a metal and rockers kind of tribe. Yeah. And everyone had a ghetto blaster in every corner, and you tried to drown everyone else out. So the metal rockers in one corner, there was like the kind of hippie goths in another corner, smelling of patchouli oil and in like free-flowing skirts. There was the kind of indie alternative kind of people that I was kind of part of. And then there were the townies, the trendies who wore kind of rugby shirts and, went to Next for their clothes. Crazy, imagine that. So there was a bit of sort of intersection in the Venn diagrams, like the hippie goths kind of got on a bit with some parts of the indie and alternative kids and the metalers, but the townies and trendies were their own. But that was about 2/3 of the college were those people anyway, so there was plenty in that tribe. They were just kind of chart music really, so it was Wet, Wet, Wet and Tapao and then Jericho and all that kind of stuff, which, I had no truck with at all. We did form a band as well, I'd forgotten this. Me and a couple of mates formed a band called Velma and the Mystery Machine. And it was really a bit of a lark to get out of. So there was this thing at college called supplementary studies, and it was a period or a couple of periods a week where if you had a project that you wanted to develop and a bit of time to do this thing, I think they saw it as an enriching sort of opportunity for you, if you like. So I played a bit of guitar anyway, and my mate Cole was singer and lyricist. He was really into Lloyd Cole and Morrissey, so he wrote these kind of lyrics in that kind of vein. And another mate called Mike who played guitar. And then my mate Dave, who wasn't a musician at all, but he was a lazy sod and he wanted to get out and do anything else. So he bought a drum machine, about 50 quid from Argos, just like the most basic drum machine you could get, just so he could join our band and arse around on this bloody drum machine. And it sounded awful. You can imagine what a cheap 1987 drum machine sounded like. Doo-doo, doo-doo, doo-doo. You know, that's all it was. And we were trying to play these kind of indie acoustic kind of songs, and all over the top of them is like boom, 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 boom. It's like bloody Phil Collins playing with the Lars. It was really bizarre. So,
it sounded like EastEnders.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it really was. So that was fun. So I was getting into playing a bit of music as well. I'd been learning guitar for a few years by that point. That's kind of where I was up to. What about you, Si?
Well, I was, 14 years old. So I'm the baby here. Third year at school. There's not much pressure when you're in your third year at school, so you can just kind of drift through, which is what I mainly did at school. And I've been trying to think back, I've got any memories of school at that time. I haven't really, apart from one, and that's a couple. That the new Brian Ferry album had come out this month. It's reviewed in this issue. I'd gone out and bought it on day of release, gone straight from school, got the bus into town, went and bought the album, brought it back home and thought it was amazing. Of course I did. And my English teacher was interested in hearing it, so I did a tape of it for him. And we were chatting before we started recording. Kath, you did your teacher training at my school after I left. And my English teacher was your your mentor or something?
Yeah. Oh, Danny.
Yeah, Danny Lester. Looked like Freddie Mercury and would walk around with his tie flapped over his shoulder if it was windy outside, and then he'd come into the classroom with it still over his shoulder and go, sir, your tie is over your shoulder. And he'd go, oh, yeah, it's windy. Yeah. And he'd put it down. So he talked a little bit like Cliff Richard.
I was going to say, that's
he talked a little bit like Cliff Richard, but looked like Freddie Mercury.
Windswept and interesting.
Yeah. So I did him a tape of Brian Ferry's Bête Noire album. But I got a tape back from one of the other teachers, Mr. Cross. He was the geography teacher, big 70s prog fan and stuff like that. He'd got the new Fleetwood Mac album, Tango in the Night. I wanted to hear that. My sister wanted to hear it as well. So he gave him a C60 and he taped that for me. I think, look at it now. Is that crossing a bit of a line? I don't know.
I think it's all right.
Is that all right?
Yeah. Was it Memorex or TDK?
I used a Rubbish Inferior tape from the Brian Ferry album to give to him.
Right.
So that was a BASF.
Well, that's crossing a line. So
yeah. So I didn't need that. I was okay to, I can live without that tape. I can take that hit. I can't remember what the C60 was. Probably TDK or Maxell or something.
Well, that's fair.
That,
Yeah.
So in terms of other music at that time, I'm recording a lot of stuff from the telly. I've got my VHS tape here. Music on TV, July 87 to February 88. So there wasn't an awful lot in the charts going on that I liked at that time. It took me all those months to fill a 3-hour videotape. So I wasn't necessarily listening to a lot of new music or buying a lot of new music. I was going for the old stuff. I discovered record fairs and bootlegs and B-sides and all those sorts of things. I was massively into all that. So the new music that I was encountering was through Top of the Pops and also on the radio. So I'd always listen to Johnny Walker on a Saturday afternoon. He played grown-up music, always Annie Nightingale on a Sunday evening because you'd always hear something fun and interesting on there. And then Singled Out, which was the kind of round table singles review program with Mike Reed. And I actually phoned in once because they got some details about a Brian Ferry single wrong.
Excuse me.
I think you'll find.
I think you'll find that that was originally a hit for Jim Reeves in 1962. Yeah, it was that kind of thing, which Mike Reed should have known. I've got that on a cassette somewhere, so I'll see if I can dig. That out and attach that to the podcast.
Katie Thomas from Witney in Oxfordshire says Brian Ferry's record was unadulterated, boring drivel.
Wasn't that bad.
Pauline Shelley from Buckingham said after hearing Brian Ferry's single, she thinks cover versions should not be allowed. Mark Clay from Peterborough says that Brian Ferry is in a time machine going backwards. Never mind releasing it, he should never have recorded it. Simon Galloway from Sheffield says the Brian Ferry single is actually an outtake from his 1978 album. So there.
So I think that takes us back to 1987 and where we're all at. So before we get stuck into this issue, without giving too much away, Kath, why did you choose this one?
Honestly, because of you two on the front cover.
Okay.
I'd been a huge U2 fan through my teens, up to becoming a sixth former. And that picture on the front there, it's just, it drew me to this particular edition. A lot of leather going on.
Leather waistcoat from Bono.
Yeah, and he's pouting.
And he's got very freckly arms. I've just noticed for the first time. Very freckly arms there he's got.
But they've all got suntans.
Yeah.
Because obviously they've been in the desert.
That's right.
Hanging around trees.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, for the reasons I was saying before, that kind of that transitional period, and actually this magazine, there's a lot of polarity. There's a lot
really
of pop,
is,
but there's also some rock in there. There's some indie stuff. It's really quite mixed up. So I think it appealed for that reason.
Looking at the cover, we've got Pet Shop Boys, Communards, U2 obviously, Wet, 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 Tapao, Sting and Black. And on the posters Madonna, George Michael, Morton Harkett off of Aha, Bananarama, Rick Astley and The Cure. So it would have cost you 48 pence. Opening it up on the contents page, in terms of songs, lyrics, we've got Living in a Box, The Communards, Juice and Mary Chain, Tapao, Sting, Scarlet Fantastic, Marillion, The Smiths, Whitesnake, The Christians, Heartbeat, Janet Jackson, Brian Ferry, Cliff Richard and George Harrison.
So we get into bits, and there's a lot going on in bits in this issue. 3 stories jump out straight away with Curiosity, are definitely not splitting up. Our Level 42, no more. And then the Smiths, What the Joggins is going on. So the Smiths are already gone. They were history by then, but they're just clearing up some points here because there's a new single coming out, some reissues, so just clarifying a few points there. At Level 42, half the band have quit, so they're kind of carrying on and trying to patch things together with 2 new members. And Curiosity are definitely not splitting up after the bass player had a bit of a hissy fit on stage in Japan. And I think he was having a bit of a hard time by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
Because he got banned from driving after being arrested for drunk driving and things like that. He wasn't handling the fame very well, I don't think.
Had a bit of an Anderton Deck moment there, didn't he?
Yeah. And then there's George Harrison, The Story So Far, which is a little potted history.
Yeah, they managed to condense that down to half a page, which is very good, really, isn't it?
Yeah, kind of almost dismissing the Beatles in a way. It's like the Beatles, they're not important.
Yeah.
Welcome back wrinkly, they say, don't they?
Yeah, well, you think about it, right? So what is he there? He's going to be about 44 years old, something like that. And look at him. I mean, he's lived a life. That photo of him, he looks way older than 44.
He does.
And the same in the video for Got My Mind Set on You. It's like, I'm now older than George Harrison is in this video here. And he's looking at least 10 years older than I am. It must have been something that they had in the water when they were celebrities those days. Or possibly the drunken drinks. Drunken drugs.
Drunken drinks.
Drinking drinks.
And then there's a fantastic competition, Win This Massive Arch. That's featured in Freddie Mercury's new video. So Lord Frederica Mercury and Montserrat Caballé, opera's comeliest diva, as I refer to her, they had the song Barcelona, and you could win in this competition. It's probably the strangest prize I've ever seen in a Smash Hits, actually. A 25-foot high arch that was featured in the video, and you can win it by answering a question about opera. I'd love to know what happened to it, actually. I'd love to know who won it and what they did with it.
Well, they do, and quite rightly, point out that before entering this competition, you may pause to consider where you will put this edifice should you win it.
I like the way that they helpfully give you arches to, as examples of what arches might be if you didn't know what an arch looked like and hadn't yet seen the video.
Yeah. Marble Arch, piffle. Arc de Triomphe, weedy. What's that? Arch of Titus, not much cop. Brandenburg Gate, pathetic.
Turning the page, we come on to the Bits Concise History of the Beard in Rock. We've already mentioned George Harrison, and he makes another appearance on this page, but there's some great ones. It says, many people think that George Michael invented the beard in rock, for, as will be revealed below, he has had rather a lot of the things. However, he's merely one of a vast crowd of hirsute warblers who litter the glittering hallways of fame. Are you sitting comfortably? Then Blitz will begin. And, there's some great ones in here. My favourite one, I think, might be Roy Wood. It says, 70s glam rocker Roy Wood, the only man in the world with a beard all the way round his head. That's a great picture of him with a fantastic sort of grey and white sort of spiky thing on top of his head. What's your favourite side? Did you have a particular one?
I've got a few favourites, but I think is this the first time that the ZZ Top story appears about
it could be actually,
Frank
yes.
Beard being the only member of the band who doesn't have a beard?
Yeah, which is now like the one thing that everyone remembers about ZZ Top, but then it was probably a new fact, yeah.
I like the dude from the Grumbleweeds, who looks like he should really be presenting Rainbow.
I thought it was Noel Edmonds, to be honest.
Bit of David Bowie there, isn't there?
Yeah, David Bowie with... but he was never very good at growing beards. I mean, he did it in the Baal TV play thing, and he did it for Tin Machine. Not very convincing, Dave. Just sitting above Dave there. Is it a dead caterpillar? Is it a piece of wonky crochet? Is it the gateway to another dimension? No, it's Mick Hucknall's attempt at a beard, which is barely even there.
It's poor, that, isn't it?
Yeah, and then we get a shot of George Michael's attempts at beards throughout the years, and then Pepsi and Shirley with added beardness.
On the next page is a little thing on Iceland because of the sugar cubes. You mentioned the sugar cubes before. Birthday is still an amazing sounding thing, isn't it?
Yeah, on the playlist that we've put together for this edition is probably one of the standout songs because it just sounds so unlike anything else and so out of time that it doesn't feel like it's dated. And it's great seeing the video as well because Björk looks about 10 years old.
I know, it's insane, isn't it?
Her vocal is incredible in that song. And I love the way in the article here that they just, Icelanders come across as bonkers, don't they? I don't know whether it's because of the isolation and, the fact that it says here that if you're Icelandic, you've got to be called an Icelandic name. There's the revelling in their Icelandicness. But I went to see them at Manchester University. I think it was 88 or 89. And it was scary. They were very punk. It was very aggressive. It was the most injured I'd ever been at a gig because the mosh pit was unbelievably violent. My feet were black and blue afterwards. It was a fantastic gig, though.
Best time of my life.
To see the Sugar Cubes live.
Yeah.
Incredible. And Einar, the guy that used to do like this sort of shouty vocal, was just obscene.
Yeah.
He shouted at the people in the crowd and spat at us and, just really was very kind of aggressive towards us. Like, why have you come here? It was a great gig though. One of many great gigs during that period.
I think it's interesting how the piece doesn't actually have that much to do with the Sugar Cubes. It's more about Iceland and amazing facts about the place. Beneath that, it's a weird pop group called Big Pig, which is a pop group from Australia. Nothing really of any interest here, apart from the running thing of Rick Astley's childhood song, Ruddy Big Pig. And which had been revealed in Smash Hits, possibly, it had been a few weeks before this because Rick had recently been number one. Even more amazing still, Big Pig have never even heard of the song Ruddy Big Pig, the song Rick Astley wrote when he was 8 or 9.
I'm getting obsessed with this because we talked about it in the last episode, didn't we? Because there'd been a letter about it. And I kind of vaguely remember it from the time that, it was a song that Rick had written and he couldn't remember the tune, but he remembered some of the words and it's the funniest thing. And it becomes sort of part of a running joke through Smash Hits. Yeah. Really Big Pig, turns up quite a bit. And then turning the page. Billy Idol wearing what can only be described as perv breeks, I think, is basically... he's sat with like a black... I don't know if it's a leather coat, or a long shirt. I don't know quite what it is. Some kind of coat, I think. And some PVC, would you call them tights? I suppose they're kind of like stockings.
Long leather boots, almost.
Yeah. He's got boots and then he's got leg warmers and then but some sort of... I don't know quite what's going on. I don't want to look too closely, to be fair. And he's sat on a stool and he's wearing... A thong, basically. Yeah. It looks like a studded thong by the look of it.
And with a naked torso and upper thigh.
I was going to get to that, I was trying to skate around the issue a little bit, but basically he's naked apart from this thong and these weird boots. So I'm trying to remember why he's wearing that. There's no reason for it, is it? It's just... Just an excuse to print the photo.
I can't work out either the piece, whose point of view it's written from. Hello, I'm a rubber perv breek, and it's not much of a life, I can tell you. You never know where you're going to end up. I've seen some pretty unsavoury sights in my time. Never been quite the same since glimpsing Larry Blackman's codpiece, I can tell you. But this takes the biscuit. One moment, I'm hanging in a corner of Uncle Disgusting's total perv emporium, innocently minding my own business. The next, I'm gazing up at a pair of minuscule leather Y fronts on some geezer called Billy Idol, who's forgotten to put his thermal vest on. Needs a bit of therapy, if you ask me. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting a bit old for this perv lark.
Yeah, so you never got this in the NME, did you? Like a column written by a pair of pervy trousers.
Yeah.
And then we have an interview with Colin Verncombe of Black, and this is a bit of a snooze fest, this one, isn't it? It's a little dull. Basically, he's travelling around Europe. It's a 24-hour jaunt around Europe with Colin Verncombe as he visits various capitals and mimes in TV studios to... I think he had a multitude of singles out in different countries. He talks about having about 4 different singles out in Europe all at the same time. So I think his life was basically landing in one country, going to a TV studio, being told which single he had to mime to, doing that, and then jetting off somewhere else. And he doesn't come across as very happy, does he?
Nah.
It's not a wonderful life.
It's not at all.
I was
going to say that, sorry. Beat you to it. Do you want to say it anyway? Let's pretend I didn't say it.
He's not having a wonderful life.
He isn't. He isn't, Kath. Wish I'd have thought of that.
And then to our first 2-page spread of the magazine, and the delightful Carol Decker from T'Pau, who were actually at number 1 with China in Your Hand when this issue of Smash Hits was in your newsagents. Anybody want to kick us off with Carol here?
It was Vicky McDonald did the piece with Carol Decker, and it just seems like a lot of fun because Carol's really up for it. She knows what the kids want. They want stories about being sick in a cowboy boot, so they get that. Drinking sometimes makes me terribly sick. There's a lot of stories about drinking, aren't there, in this issue, particularly in this interview with Carol. I've fallen asleep with my head down a toilet many a time, and Ronnie, who's out of the band, her boyfriend, has helped me throw up into a bucket. When I was younger, I threw up into this guy's brand new cowboy boots on our first date. I thought I'd never see him again, but we ended up engaged for a while. Don't know how that happened, but I'm trying to cut down on the drinking now because life is getting to be a bit of a blur. She's really living the pop life, isn't she? And she's had quite a crazy time. She's talking about things that she did at school. She was on an art foundation course in Shrewsbury, and she painted a bedroom with her eyes shut while she was doing that. Bizarrely. And it says, used to get these arty-farty teachers. You could put your finger in mud and smear it on the paper and they'd go, I can see what you're trying to say, Carol. Once we were blindfolded and told to paint our bedrooms. I was saying practical things like, but I can't find the paint. And the tutor said, no, feel your room. I want your feelings. So, of course, it was like a bloody chimp's tea party. There's a really funny bit as well where she names and shames like her old school bully. She talks about going to a strict grammar school called Wellington Girls High School. It says you had to wear a beret, and I remember one horrible prefect called Wendy Powell. Print a name because she was an old cow. Pinned me up against the wall while her cronies rammed my beret on my head. It's lovely to see all the girls who hated me being so rampantly jealous of my success now. I hope they're reading this. I met one the other day. She kept telling me how lovely I looked in my pictures and how I've grown into my face. What a cow! So Carol's really using this opportunity of her pop stardom to have a bit of revenge.
Well, kind of following on from that, she says that she didn't have a boyfriend until she was 19. And she says, still, all the girls who had 36 busts when they were 14, it's all around their knees now, ha ha. And when I see what some of the people I fancied are like nowadays, yeah! See, I had quite a thing for Carol Decker, though.
Did you?
Back in the day, I did. Yeah.
What was it? Was it her hair or her personality?
Well, I didn't really know much about the personality, so I guess it would have been the hair, yeah. And I was quite jealous of, what's the guy in the band who she went out with?
Was it Ronnie?
Roy. Yeah, him. I was quite jealous of him. But he gets another mention here in the piece when she's talking about that she used to dance around a handbag in nightclubs in Shrewsbury. And she says that, I'm afraid I come from the dancing round your handbag era. In fact, the other night, my boyfriend said I was moving so badly on stage that he felt like giving me a handbag to dance around.
And of course, he's got to be careful because she's a short-tempered bitch, according to what it says here in the article.
Doesn't she throw some stuff at him?
Yes.
I love him, but we fight a lot. Fortunately for him, I'm a bad aim. A couple of window panes have suffered. Instead, I'll throw whatever's closest to hand, especially if it's something he treasures.
Like the bust in the video.
Oh.
The china in her hand.
Exactly.
That she throws. I loved that moment. Yeah. That was the best moment in the video. Is he the guy that looks half man, half alpaca?
Yeah. Very good description.
Thank you. It's all about the hair, isn't it, Tupo?
Yeah. Marillion.
Oh, my
Warm,
God.
wet circles, which I thought was about somebody wetting themselves. But
I just thought it was really salacious. But I don't want to think about fish and warm, wet circles.
Just the two things together, just that idea.
Yeah, really incongruous.
I think it's the when you've had a beer in a pub and then you pick it up and it's that,
Yes,
isn't it?
yeah.
You know, so don't let your imagination go too far there, Kath.
No.
Does that help you at all?
It does help me,
Okay.
yes.
yeah, but it's better than calling it Fisher's ring mark.
I'd have bought that 12-inch.
But again, the lyrics. They're just so convoluted and...
It's
You're
very
like
sixth form poet, isn't it?
Yes.
Very ponderous. Go on, pick out a couple of favourite lines there, Kath.
Oh, hang on. I saw teenage girls like gaudy moths, a classroom's shabby butterflies, flirt in the glow of stranded telephone boxes.
Planning white lace weddings from smeared hearts and token proclamations rolled from stolen lipsticks. It's well deep in it.
Is there a chorus?
That's the chorus. I think the chorus is in a warm wet circle. Yeah. Like a mother's kiss on your first... Oh, God, it just goes on and on. There's loads of it.
Wipe it up, mate, and move on.
Yeah, exactly. Give us a jiffy cloth and let's get rid of your warm wet circle fish. Moving on.
Yeah, we'll get to our cover stars, you two, and let's see, 4 pages they get there. What do we pick out from this then?
Well, it's unusual. The cover, they're all looking in different directions, so you get the sense of 4 individuals, and they've all been interviewed by Chris Heath, but individually, so you get like a bigger one with Bono, as you'd expect, and then kind of a third of a page each with Adam, Larry and The Edge. I mean, I'd seen you two on the Joshua Tree tour earlier on in this year, thinking about when was it? I did write it down. 3rd of June, 1987 at the NEC in Birmingham. And as I was saying before, this was the reason I bought Smash Hits, because it had you two. Although I think I was starting to go off them a little bit. I loved Joshua Tree and I loved everything that had come before that. But I think Rattle and Hum era, I was starting to be a bit too worthy. They'd gone from being quite exciting, sort of new wavy, punky, quite strident types, to then just being a bit boring, you know. And
a bit rhythm and blues.
Yeah, so they were starting to kind of, for me, go a bit down the dumper. So Bono, we learn about Bono's childhood. I mean, a lot of it is about his childhood here, isn't it? I think pretty much the whole piece. Talks about him losing his mum at quite an early age. I think was he about 14 or something when he lost his mum. And then he obviously had quite a few sort of behavioural problems, didn't he? Again, we were talking about Tapau earlier on, and Carol Decker hurling things at her boyfriend, and Bono throws a kitchen knife at his dad, and his dad had to duck, and the kitchen knife stuck in the kitchen door behind him, and him sort of throwing dog shit at a teacher, didn't he, and stuff, and that's all in there.
The bit that stuck out to me was that he made friends with a bee.
Oh, I missed that.
How could you miss that?
How did I miss that? I don't know.
Bono and the Bee sounds like a kid's book, doesn't it?
Bono and the bee. The man that put the bee into Bono. Yeah.
And it wasn't Sting.
Hey! Hey! Come on.
That came later.
Well done.
Thank you.
So yeah, quite a difficult school days, but then obviously Larry puts an advert up at school. I guess things kind of work out better from... This bit made me laugh where it talks about him getting a job as a petrol pump attendant. It says he took this job and he had a theory that being in the quiet hours, he'd write songs. As luck would have it, it was when the worldwide oil crisis erupted. We had these queues for miles and the cars just kept coming, so I quit. Wasn't the job he was hoping for.
Yeah. Got a job, I don't want to do the job.
Yeah, and then it talks a lot about their Christian beliefs. Doesn't go into sort of great detail about it, but obviously it was a very sort of intense and privately held strong beliefs that they had. And there was a group called the Shalom group?
The Shalom.
The Shalom group, yeah. And it was talking about them almost kind of quitting music altogether and getting very close to that point, but not quite. And then, obviously, as we know, because they're still with us now, they just carried on and on and on and on and on.
U2 Incorporated.
And on.
Yeah, but the odd one out in the band is Adam Clayton, who doesn't hold these religious beliefs, and he was feeling kind of very estranged from the rest of the band. And this is mentioned here, and how things nearly all kind of fell apart, but they decided to carry on. But it's more of a profile than there's no fresh interview material being used here. It's just sort of like, U2 had obviously been a massive news in '87. 3 or 4 really big singles out that year. And I was well into them as well. And what I liked about that, as I was saying earlier, I was finding out that bands had really interesting songs on the B-sides, and all the singles from the Joshua Tree had songs that weren't on the album. And there were 2 songs on the B-sides of each of those singles. So I was well into that and always remembered them fondly. And then a few months ago, I got to thinking about these songs again. I have a hard time with U2 now.
Yeah.
I stuck with them for quite a few years, but I do have a hard time now. It's mostly Bono's voice, mostly Bono.
Yeah.
But I went back and revisited all these B-sides. Oh, they're not very good.
Are they not?
There's a couple of good ones, but apart from that, you can hear microphones being dropped and wrong notes being dropped, flying about everywhere. They're just kind of almost like we're jamming this song. Oh, let's stick that on the B-side.
This will do kind of thing.
Yeah. Whereas I dedicated years and many, many pounds to tracking down all of U2's singles.
Okay.
Right from the first EP in 1979 up to, this would have been in the late 90s when I was, I stuck with them that long.
Oh, you stuck with them a longer time than I did.
Finding all these singles and spending a pretty penny.
Yeah. I started with the Joshua Tree and worked my way backwards. They really weren't on my radar until then.
Okay.
So this is pretty current in my understanding of the band. I do like this interview because I think it's just before they lost all sense of modesty, before they became huge, big stars. And it's nice to see Bono's eyes because, he
sunglasses.
No, I'd rather have the sunglasses.
No, and you get a sense of every member of the band in this. I really like that they do focus on them as individuals. And the fact that they all ended up at the same school. And of course they're going to talk about religion because it's Ireland.
Yeah.
And it's so pertinent for them to be talking about that with all the troubles. I mean, they're right at this time, aren't they? When it couldn't be obscured for them. It was there. They lived that life. But yeah. I didn't go any further than that.
Well, what you were saying about it was the time when there was still a bit of modesty about them. I suppose Joshua Tree was the album that really broke them in America, wasn't it? Yeah. And this was not long after that. So they were still in that first flush. But I guess, after that, when they went all rattle and hum and were rediscovering the blues and recording with B.B. King and trying to find themselves musically, that's when I think they got a bit up their own arses.
Oh, I bloody loved that at the time, though.
Yeah,
that's when I formed my band, and we'd watch, because we used to rehearse in the bass player's garage. So we'd watch Rattle and Hum while we're having a break or something like that. And then we'd all run into the garage and try and do Where the Streets Have No Name, which sounded horrendous, of course, because, we haven't got, millions of pounds worth of gear to draw upon. I'm just playing a guitar through an old reel-to-reel tape recorder and the drummer's playing biscuit tins and things. So it didn't sound quite the same, but, that got us fired up. Yes, I do remember U2 fondly, but I can't really go there. No.
I listened to Joshua Tree again the other day, just because of this, and I got the CD out. It's got a little place in my heart.
There are parts of it that still sound really good. And when you listen to the playlist as well, or when I was listening to it, and In God's Country came on, because that's a song that was in the charts at that time, an American import, kids. It wasn't released in the UK. I got my copy from Our Price in Sheffield. So that was one that was kind of like in the lower reaches of the charts. And when that comes on, I get it.
Yeah.
I know why they were such a big band for me then, because amidst all the drum machines and all the horns and synths and all that kind of thing, U2 come, and it's like the light suddenly shines in, and there's this whole different thing.
It's a big epic sound, and it's not that tinny drum machine kind of thing going on,
and it just feels so different to everything else that was going on at the time, even though there were loads of bands ripping off U2. And The Alarm, who were in this one, Rain in the Summertime. It's kind of U2 by numbers. But yeah, it just feels like this bit of light that just suddenly comes in, just this breath of air amidst all the synthesizers and drum machines. So I understand why they were a big band for me, and why I still keep going back and not so sure. But I get it. And then we get to the personal file of the Communards, Richard Coles and Jimmy Somerville, and probably my favourite piece in the whole mag, Richard Coles especially. But there's a weird thing going on, because typical Smash Hits questions, you get, first crush, first record ever bought, first concert. And it turns out that both Richard and Jimmy Somerville have the same first crush. Richard says, Captain James T. Kirk of the Starship Enterprise, he was just so handsome and masterful and so calm and in control. And Jimmy Somerville says, well, I don't know whether it was Captain Kirk or Lieutenant Uhura. I think probably Captain Kirk awakened tingles up my back. But yeah, Richard Coles absolutely stands out on this one. He talks about his first concert, which was actually Beethoven's Symphony No. 7 at the Royal Albert Hall when he was 8 years old. But then a few years later, says his first pop concert was the Sex Pistols in the county cricket ground in Northampton before they were famous. I didn't go for the music. I went because I really fancied this boy who went there. I don't remember the Sex Pistols, but I do remember the boy. And then they ask him, has Bono ever told you any good jokes? Who's Bono? Oh, him. Does he tell jokes? He doesn't strike me as a very humorous person, but I don't know him at all, so... What's the worst thing you've done after a couple of drinks? And he says, I think being sick over my great Aunt Phyllis at my cousin's wedding. I was about 12, and unfortunately they let me have some champagne. Poor Aunt Phyllis. I lurched over to her and she was trying to keep me away, but I was sick over her taupe coat dress. It was rather soiled, unfortunately. She never ever spoke to me again after that. I can't really say I blame her.
Poor great Aunt Phyllis.
Any responses from Jimmy Somerville? His ones aren't as entertaining, I don't think. I think Richard Coles is clearly a great storyteller.
They ask him what's the worst thing he's done after a couple of drinks, and he says, ooh, I've honestly done so many dreadful things, I can't even try to recollect. It's a bit like Carol Decker again, isn't it? Like they certainly don't shy away from asking pop stars what they've done when they've had a bit too much fizz. He says, I always get in trouble after a few drinks. He says, if Richard sees me in a bar and he thinks I've had one too many, he won't even talk to me. So that tells a few stories there, doesn't it? He says, but now I drink Guinness, and for the past few years I've been really good. I usually get overexcited when I drink and I always get in trouble. And then Richard interjects. He says, Jimmy, you always cause trouble. So then Jimmy says, so I can't even think of the worst thing. It would be censored anyway. So, yeah, I think there's a few stories lurking there that don't come out.
Sounds like it. Jimmy's first concert, he says the B-52s, but he says, well, I saw the Bay City Rollers before that in a carpet showroom, which they were opening, but they weren't really singing, which was sad. His response to has Bono ever told you any good jokes? I think Bono's a bit of a joke, but then Larry Mullen, that's another story. I've got a poster of him up in my kitchen. I'm not a fan of U2, but I just think he's so wonderful.
I think this pair would be great on a night out. They're such polar opposites. And you've got Jimmy that doesn't read. He says he never takes books, he takes his Walkman. Whereas Richard's, getting ploughed into some great tome.
Yeah.
They just are so much themselves and exactly as you imagine them to be.
I'd love to know if they're still friends now. I hope they still are.
Yeah.
I imagine they are. We come next, after skipping a few more pages, to Blue Mercedes. Anyone remember them?
No.
I Want to Be Your Property was their kind of one big top 40 hit. Also number one in the US dance chart, and they had a Top of the Pops appearance around this time as well. So Vicky McDonald does a one-page interview with them. And the other night, feeling at a bit of a loose end, I thought, oh, the lead singer's got an unusual name. I'll see if I can get in touch with him somehow. Turns out I found his email address, emailed him. Last thing at night, I thought I'd send a speculative email. And God bless him, David Titlow got back to me the next morning. I had a thing, what do you want to know? So I sent him some questions and asked him a few things. I asked him, I said, how much of a big deal was the first piece in Smash Hits? Was it a goal you'd set yourselves? And he said, it was a massive deal. I used to love Smash Hits, and getting inside the pages was the print version of getting on top of the pops. I was a complete fame vampire, and this seemed like the first step. I asked him if there were any nerves in doing the article, and he said, I was very overexcited, hence the verbal diarrhea in the interview, probably drove the journo nuts. And you get a sense of that because he seems very, very excitable, like a toddler that's had too many Skittles. And then there's a really bizarre bit which I wanted to ask him about. So kind of halfway through the article, it says, mystifyingly, they describe the sound of I Want to Be Your Property as street Latin wolf, and that's wolf with 2 Fs. Duncan, who's the keyboard player in the band, explains, it's based on a dream I had. I dreamt we were in New York and I saw a poster on a wall saying, Blue Mercedes, the new street Latin wolf, Miguel Miller and Puig Titlow. It was like a Latin American group, and there was a picture of David in a green satin tuxedo. It's got to be the truth. I couldn't make up something so ridiculous. People are even arguing about the spelling now. Please note, it's WOLFF. And then it says, I remember Duncan saying I should get the green suit made up. So it says Dunk, it should be says David. But I declined and got the shorts instead. Ha. So I asked about this because I thought, surely this is a made-up thing, but there's no reason why you would lie about this all these years later. But I said, what's the street Latin wolf thing, a real dream or just a good story? And he says, that was actually for real. I remember Duncan the day after he had the dream, and he was very excited about it. He gave us our own musical genre to spout on about. So, I mean, that's kind of quite an interesting thing, isn't it? That they had their own genre from a dream, and it was a true thing. And he was just talking, David, about his shorts there, and he's got a pair of shorts that say funk on one leg and ass on the other. He's got these shorts made up, and he says, I've got 10 pairs in various colours. They all say funk ass at the moment, but we might be appearing on Blue Peter, so we'll have to change it to funk botty or something. And then I didn't ask him about that, but then he remembered, and the next day he got back to me and said, I remember now that we did in fact have to change the funk-ass lettering on my shorts for our Blue Peter appearance. A special pair were commissioned with blue and Peter on each leg. Far less threatening for the pre-Watershed audience. So there we go. I also asked, and then it says at the end of the article, what kind of fans do they want? And Dave says, anyone, grannies, winos, bag ladies, we don't care at all. So I said, at the end you said you'd be happy with grannies, winos or bag ladies. How did that go? And he says, well, it was a fun ride for a few years, but a few bad decisions and the madness of the 80s scuppered us in the end. We were probably lucky not to end up as winos or bag ladies. So there we go. I think they enjoyed living the pop dream for a short while anyway.
Yeah, no, it's a great piece to do. Come across
very
as
funny.
having a lot of energy to go around. I like the bit where Duncan's talking about before they got famous, and he was making ends meet by being a pianist in a restaurant in London. And he says, Les Dawson was a regular. He sat right next to me one evening and burped all the way through the meal.
That would put you off your stroke, wouldn't it, when you were playing in a swanky restaurant?
Yeah, doing a nice bit of lounge piano music, and you got Les Dawson burping away.
Well, I looked Duncan up as well, and he's a jazz pianist now, and he does he puts his own albums out, quite smooth jazz instrumental stuff. But it's, nice enough sounding stuff. But it's a very funny interview. I think they cram a lot into this page, don't they?
Yeah,
they give very good value.
Did you watch them on Top of the Pops?
Yes.
They just look like sweet boys. The bouncing that's going on. He's like Tigger, isn't he, the singer? And they look like sixth formers.
Yeah, just on there by accident.
Yeah, in their basketball gear on the way back to the changing rooms. Sweet boys.
Yeah, no, they look like they're having a lot of fun with that crazy double standing up keyboard.
Yeah, it's a weird thing, isn't it? But it's good to have a little gimmick, isn't it, as a band, And,
I don't remember anything about them, though.
No.
Unfortunately. And listening to that song, first of all, I thought, I don't remember putting ABC on the playlist.
I had exactly the same thought.
And it does say in there that the people have compared them to ABC, and they don't mind that because Let's Kind of Love is one of their favourite albums. Quite right, too.
One last question I asked him as well. I asked him if he was a reader of Smash Hits. I said, it seems like you probably were, just because some of the language they use is very Smash Hits. And he says, yes, I was an avid reader. My cousin Mark actually used to write and illustrate the early hits comic strip, The Adventures of Zitty Ben, which I don't remember at all. I actually remember visiting once in the Carnaby Street office, very exciting. So,
thank you, David.
Thank you, David. I really appreciate you getting in touch, and nice to have a little insight into what it was actually like to be in Smash Hits.
Let's have some Pet Shop Boys.
Oh, this is a great article. Get Smart, which was the part of the magazine where the pop kids could write in with any burning issues or questions that they needed answering in the days before the internet, and you didn't really have any other way sometimes of finding out the answers to your burning questions. So it's a Pet Shop Boys special, and there's some fantastic questions in there. Kath, should we start with you? Have you got any particular questions in there that caught your eye? Any funny things?
Yes, somebody writes in and asks whether he saw Neil Tennant in Liberties in London. I mean, this is the burning question. I guess it's a kind of, I've seen Neil Tennant in real life. He wants to have it verified so that he can talk about it. And yes, indeed, it was him. But I thought that was quite amusing and random.
It's a very specific inquiry, isn't it? That?
Yeah, and then at the bottom of the page, you've got the Pet Shop Boys actually modelling in Smash Hits, with T-shirts and looking really young and completely unself-conscious.
From 1983 Smash Hits yearbook. That's
before they were just the kings of cool. We've got them there grinning inanely, and it's so un-Pet Shop Boys.
It feels wrong somehow, doesn't it?
It does, because everything's so particular with them.
Yeah,
normally.
Their image is very carefully created, and here they are just grinning away or pulling silly faces. Any questions there that caught your eye?
Well, no, the Liberties thing was the thing that stood out to me. And it's that they actually missed, they did agree to meet each other in the shop and missed each other and ended up meeting an hour later. And it's how Neil is very specific with the detail on that as well. It feels like he's some sort of diarist or something like that, consulting it. Oh, yes, well, I did, yes. And then, well, he wasn't there. And
yes, I thought that, it was very, very specific on the time and the place. And there's another funny question on the next page that I really liked. It says, Dear Get Smart, I have some questions for you about the Pet Shop Boys. Is Neil Tennant taking helium to make his voice higher? And no. So you can imagine rolling his eyes at this. No, says Neil. He definitely doesn't take helium or anything to make his voice higher. And there's a lot of questions about clothes that the boys are wearing and the sunglasses and so on, and stuff about lyrics as well. There's 3 questions about the song. Is it called Paninaro?
Yeah, on the it's from the disco album.
That's right, yes. And the lyrics about Armani, Versace, Cinque. Because obviously the lyrics weren't in Smash Hits for that one, so people wouldn't have known what it said, and people maybe didn't know what Armani was then, I guess.
Yeah, it wasn't a single, but best track on the album, that one.
Yes, for sure. And then we've got a discography.
Oh, I love the discography.
Yeah, because that's geeky, nerdy detail, isn't it?
Look at the B-sides.
All the B-sides. It's got all about the different versions. It tells you about the 7-inch double packs and the 12-inch double sleeve, and if it's got the same tracks and all that kind of thing. And it talks about the early singles as well that they released before they were famous. So it's a really good little primer, this, into the world of Pet Shop Boys, isn't it? And again, sort of very, very amusing and just lovely questions from the fans. I really enjoyed that article.
It feeds into the sort of the whole Pet Shop Boys geekery, that you can really be into the Pet Shop Boys in a very deep way because they give you the opportunity. They release different versions of songs, a bit like New Order did. You'd get remixes, and this detail works for me.
Yeah, you like it.
Yes.
Just on the letters, because we mentioned Ruddy Big Pig before, and I've got to mention it again because there's a little letter in here. It says, Dear Black Type, I noticed that in a recent issue of Smash Hits, a young chap called Rick Astley talks about a song he once wrote called Ruddy Big Pig. I wonder if by any chance this could be the same ditty as Ruddy Big Pig, a record released back in 1954 when I myself was, let us say, slightly more au fait with the world of popular music. I've tried looking everywhere for a copy of this original Ruddy Big Pig, but alas, no luck. Oh well, never mind, Dad. As some of your younger readers might say, if you do happen to come across a copy of Ruddy Big Pig, as I say, it was released in 1954, and the artist's name is J.P. Hartley. Thanking you in anticipation, J.B. Hartley, The Old Cottage, Mr. Kettering, which for some of our younger listeners who may not know the reference to J.P. Hartley, he was a guy that there was a very popular advert for Yellow Pages at the time, and he was trying to track down an old book he'd written, wasn't he, on fly fishing
by J.P.
Yeah,
Hartley.
and he was ringing up all
was it J.R. Hartley? I think it might have been
Oh,
J.R.
yes, you might
Hartley.
be right, actually.
Yeah.
I think it was J.R. Hartley,
Maybe
yes.
J.P.'s the brother.
Yes, that could be it. So, any reference to Ruddy Big Pig, I'm all over it these days, I tell you.
Now we get to more Christians on the pages of Smash Hits.
Okay.
Let's
settle into this one.
Let's have a look at the headline here. We think that millions of people in this country are going to turn back to God. Heartbeat are 7 fanatical Christians who call themselves missionaries, believe that homosexuals are sinners, and intend to convert us all to their way of thinking. They're also a pop group with a record in the charts. William Shaw investigates. Now, I know, again, no recollection of this. They did have making an appearance on Top of the Pops. You find that on the video playlist. It's not on Spotify. You'll be glad to hear. And I would have been watching Top of the Pops every week at this point. Don't remember this one at all. It's been blanked from my memory. But in an issue that has already mentioned religion, when this comes along, it just seems to strike such a sour note, I think, in the context of pop music. And the piece begins, most pop stars we know are a rebellious bunch of people, forever shocking the older generation with their goatish antics, getting squiffy, swilling champagne in posh nightclubs, lobbing TVs out of hotel windows, having affairs with billions of boyfriends/girlfriends, etc., etc. So it comes as a bit of a shock to find that a group called Heartbeat have just pounced into the charts while telling us that they're trying to put God back onto the agenda in Britain. Heartbeat, you see, are not your commoner garden pop group. They believe that God has given them a bit of a mission. In fact, they sometimes refer to themselves as missionaries. They believe that the traditional church has let Britain down, and they disapprove of premarital sex. They announce that homosexuality is a sin, and in brackets, this is a quote from one of the members of the band, a third of all vicars are gay, and it's terrible. And they claim that when they play their gigs, they can sometimes heal members of the audience who are feeling poorly. Some would call them religious oddballs. They speak to somebody from the band, a guy called Ray Goud or Ray Good, something like that.
Gowdy, I think,
yeah, Gowdy. What's it all about, says Ray? Well, we believe that God looks down upon the land and he sees us like lost children. And as a father, he's crying and telling the nation to come back to him. We think millions of people in this country are going to turn back to God. And it just felt so out of step with not just the rest of this issue, but with Smash Hits as a whole.
Yeah.
That, like you, Gav, getting in touch with David from Blue Mercedes, I sent an email to William Shaw, these days a very successful crime fiction writer, and I thought, he's going to be too busy to answer my piddling little question about something that he wrote in 1987, but no. He emailed back. It was almost instantaneous, I have to say. So I asked him if he remembered anything about the piece, because I felt that there might be more to this than meets the eye. And maybe something else went on that he might remember. This is the reply that I got from William. Jesus! I'm actually really ashamed of that article. I was being so reasonable. What was I thinking of? We had a kind of Reithian duty to report everything that was a hit, even when it was shoehorned into the top 40 by evangelicals. I should have been much braver in calling it out as a misuse of the airwaves. Thing is, I don't really remember it at all, for reasons that are probably obvious. I've totally wiped it from my memory. At the time, we were pretty industrial about what we were doing. We'd all be doing several interviews a week, and even the great ones I barely remember. So he's completely wiped it from his memory. And I think he's been a little harsh on himself, because how else were Smash Hits... Oops, I'm just chucking magazines everywhere. How else were Smash Hits going to deal with that? And I don't think it was necessarily their place to be calling it out. I think it was probably their duty, if they were writing about this band, to just kind of print the facts almost and let the readers make up their own minds. And I think that is the right way to go about it. So, William, if you're listening, don't be so hard on yourself. And I did think, something like this has got to have caused a stir with the readers. So I went to my Smash Hits archive, stored behind the sofa in my magazine files. So I had to shove the sofa out across the living room and pulled the following issue out of the box. And indeed, the first 3 letters to Black Type are about this piece. The first one, quite a long one. Dear Black Type, what? A teacher writing to Black Type? Wonders will never cease. The subject of my letter? The pop group Heartbeat. I was a bit surprised by the article William Shaw wrote. He gave the impression he thought they were weirdos. I was fortunate to meet the band recently when they were interviewed on a local radio station. Weirdos? I think not. Granted, talking about prayer and God is unusual, but surely that doesn't suggest they may have dodgy religious views. Okay, so they take the teachings from the Bible about homosexuality and premarital sex literally. But does that make them dodgy? It seems to me that rejecting bits of the Bible, like certain cults do, puts people on dodgier ground. As for things like being against premarital sex, well, so am I. My wife and I refrained from it, and we both testified to the fact that we are glad we waited and gave ourselves to no one else. It made the gift of each other that much more precious when we got married. It also helps to prevent AIDS.
Oh, my word.
If Heartbeat are dodgy, then it is about time the sleep in a pew churches woke up to the fact that God is alive and not dead and become dodgy like Heartbeat. In your interview with Bono of U2 in the same issue, he says there is a radical side to Christianity I am attracted to. So a Heartbeat. So why the weirdo bit for them, but not Bono, which is actually quite a fair point in a way. But Bono doesn't go on about his religious views in the same way that Heartbeat do. Personally, I find Heartbeat's attitude much more refreshing than Carol Decker of Tapau, also interviewed in the same issue, who seems to have spent half her life throwing up in a toilet. Yours, Dr. Nigel Webster, Ranley School, Bracknell. There's another couple of letters on this, one that doesn't really make any sense, but the final one on this subject. Dear Black Type, if Heartbeat represents God, then God is a narrow-minded bloke. Katie Barrett, P.S. I love everyone.
Oh.
Yeah, so I think it was absolutely the right way to go, to let the readers kind of make up their own minds and print those responses. I don't know what your thoughts are on this piece.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm with you, really. It's a praise song, and it seems unlikely to me that it would have yomped up the charts at this time, unless there was a very targeted set of people buying the single. But then the fact that it does end up on top of the pops means that it does have to be reported. But is that sort of reflecting the demographic of Smash Hits? Fair enough, there must be Christian readers of Smash Hits. And maybe it's something that they would really appreciate being in this magazine. But I think the reporter's very careful in not really offering opinion, but allowing the band to speak for themselves. You know, the lyrics of the song are printed alongside, and you can look at those and decide for yourself whether you think it's a pop song, I guess.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know who was buying the record, because I don't imagine that many pop kids were. But I mean, who knows? We don't know, do we? But yeah, I agree with both you two. I think the way Smash Hits dealt with it, you know, there's some pretty horrible views in here, but they don't kind of linger on them, and they don't try and say this is right or wrong. They just report them, and I would imagine that most people reading the magazine at the time would have just thought, oh, that's not very nice. And, you know, as the response from that letter showed, you know, just love everyone, and this is quite bigoted, sort of. That's certainly how it comes across, you know.
What would be really interesting would be, for a very articulate and incisive point of view on this, would be to interview Richard Coles about it.
Yes, as a gay vicar.
Yes, exactly. I mean, put them in a room together, all of these people,
that would have been
and
really
I
interesting.
think he would win.
I think he would, yeah.
Interestingly, the song got to number 32 in the charts and stayed at that position for 2 weeks, and it was the second week of it being at 32 that he got on top of the pops.
Oh, okay.
So it hadn't gone up nor down, and normally when a song had done that in the charts, he wouldn't get on top of the pops. So some strings were definitely being pulled to get them on the show.
God moves in mysterious ways. So, so we'll leave Heartbeat there, I think.
Yeah, but also thanks to William for being so quick to responding to the email. And don't be so hard on yourself, William. Skipping on a few pages, it's William Shaw again, visiting Sting at his house.
His Snoop Mansion.
His Snoop Mansion, which is actually a terraced house in London somewhere. And again, like a couple of other things in the mag, you kind of think, what's this doing in here? I think he's struggling for things to say. So most of the piece is describing his house. Sting comes across as very kind of humourless. So there's very few bits that you can kind of pick out and have a giggle at. And I think William Shaw is thinking this as he's going along. So he asks Sting, when was the last time he popped down to Woolies to buy a single? And Sting says, I haven't done that for years, he admits, but my life is perfectly normal when I'm staying at home. I mow the lawn, I go to the pub across the road, I go to the betting shop. Do I ever win much? Well, once I had a really good year. About 3 years ago, I won an awful lot of money. Unfortunately, I lost it all the next year. So that's the most interesting thing.
Yeah, that is the highlight, isn't it?
Is that he nips across to the pub and he mows the lawn, but he doesn't go to Woolies. And I think he's kind of on the defensive a little bit as well.
He doesn't buy music anymore, though. That's the point, isn't it? He only listens to classical music, which I find bizarre, because the single that he's talking about, that he's obviously advertising at the moment, is really quite shallow.
Yeah.
The lyrics are awful, and it's just a pop song. And his house is described in quite minute detail, and I imagine it to be a bit like the one in the George Harrison video.
I've always lived in terraced houses, and this is a terraced house. Sting suddenly stops realising that calling his house a terraced house when it is probably worth several squillion pounds is a bit odd. Yeah, well, he laughs. It's an expensive terraced house, but it's still a terraced house. He's just absolutely sticking to, I'm a Geordie lad and I'm still living in a terraced house.
Mm-hmm.
He's a bit prickly, isn't he? And, like you were saying before, it's a bit dull and you wonder what it's doing in here. And it kind of fits in really with some of the previous articles. You've got the Black one earlier on and the U2 one, which is quite a serious piece, and this one. And then contrasting that, you've got the article on the Pet Shop Boys and Carol Decker and the Communards, which is more your standard frothy pop kind of fare. And so there's a real kind of dividing line between these almost kind of Q kind of articles, really, aren't they?
I think that's exactly it. Q magazine had been going a year at this point, done by the same publishers. Some of the Smash Hits people that we know and love are working on Q magazine. And when you look at the gallery of covers from this point on for the rest of the 80s, this is the last time a rock band appears on the cover. So I think for Smash Hits, this is almost an end of an era and redefining their territory almost, distinguishing themselves from Q, because you look at Q magazine from this month, there's some shared, I wouldn't necessarily say content, as we say these days, but there's some shared artists. Brian Ferry's in there, Sting's in there.
U2 are probably in there, aren't they?
They'll be in there somewhere, and it's certainly been on the cover of Q earlier.
And Black are very much the kind of band that would appear in Q.
And I think a decision was clearly taken to shift it away from that, get rid of the old duffers, and let's concentrate on pop music. And from this point on, that's what Smash Hits does. Reviews, singles. This is Richard Lowe taking a look at the singles in this fortnight. He picks out the Communards for single of the fortnight, Never Can Say Goodbye. And he predicts what they might go on to cover as well, because obviously they had that massive hit with Don't Leave Me This Way. And he says, how about Dancing Queen? Yes, sir, I can boogie. You make me feel mighty real. Take good care of yourself. The Communards did actually cover Dancing Queen.
Oh, right.
They did it on Friday Night Live, a live version on the show. It was never released. I've got it on a cassette somewhere there. So I thought that was funny that it was kind of like picking out songs that the Communards could cover. And any singles jumping out to you, either the review jumps out or even that you may have bought at the time.
The Smiths, or for most of the review, it's the Smiths, just kind of a general, oh no, they've split up, or what are we going to do? And then at the end, but this is a rubbish song.
Yeah. It says it's the worst track on the album, which, I don't know, I would disagree myself, but...
The video, though, is worth mentioning because it is It's so tongue-in-cheek. Oh, I'd like to think it's tongue-in-cheek.
I think it is, yeah. It's very funny.
You know, lots of little Morrissey lookalikes following him around on bikes, going to all the iconic Smiths places, you know, the Salford Lads Club. And it's so geeky and so brilliant. So, yeah, even if you don't like the song, the video is definitely worth watching.
See, I wasn't fully aware of the Smiths world back then.
Oh, okay.
I liked them. Didn't even know that they'd split up and things like that. So the video was kind of like, what's all this about? And these places didn't really know Manchester, you know, to the side at Pennines. So I didn't really know what was going on there. So it was years later before it had any kind of real significance to me. Yeah, of course I've been and stood outside the Salford Lads Club door and had my photo taken.
It echoes of the South Bank Show programme. When the Smiths folded, Melvin Bragg got on the case and they did an hour-long programme about the Smiths, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think it was filmed while they were still together in the last few days,
Right.
but then it came out after they'd split up, that's right.
Right, which was superb. You know, I had a video of that.
Everyone I knew did, yeah. Absolutely. There's some other good little reviews. LL Cool J, now I didn't know this song, Go Cut Creator Go, which is on the Spotify playlist and on the YouTube playlist. Richard Lowe, who reviews the singles, doesn't enjoy this song. He says, there's little snippets of that familiar old guitar riff that tends to kick off proceedings on those old 50s rock and roll records. There's no tune to speak of, and it's all a bit witless, graceless row, which a lot of people will pretend to like because it's fashionable to do so. And at the time, I probably wouldn't have liked it, but now I think this is a great song. I love it.
Great, isn't it? Yes. Bros are in there as well with When Will I Be Famous? Well, boys, you really must be patient. You may be a trio of handsome young devils with rips in your jeans in all the right places, make a good poppy white funk music and generally fulfill all the requirements of the modern pop sensation. And even though your first single, I Owe You Nothing, was rather good and should have been a hit, if you follow it up with second-rate songs like this, it may not happen at all. Well, it did a few months later. Finally broke into the charts, and then the sensation that we know as Bros was up on us.
He kind of got that one a bit wrong, didn't he?
Yeah.
There's two, actually. There's another one later on where there's a review of Faith, George Michael.
Yeah.
And saying, 6 out of 10. Whoops.
Yeah, we'll get to, because that's in the album reviews. Take a look at those in a minute. But before that, Wet, 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 a review of their live show at the Hammersmith Odeon in London. And
this is funny.
what the viewers said, this is great, just catching people as they're leaving the venue to get an opinion, a little snap of them as well. Penny, 15, we're not really fans. Someone gave us free tickets, but it was good. Marty Pellow, which one's that? The lead singer, oh yeah, he's nice. Really good, nice looking, cool. Then her friend Sharon, also 15. The show was a bit short, and that bloke who was singing, what a lovely bottom. And then the people under that, Karen, 18, boring. I thought Marty Pillock's dancing was pathetic. He just made an idiot of himself, all those little girls screaming at him. I think he's got a horrible bum too, personally. He's all fat and pudgy. Vanessa, her friend, also 18. Marty Pellow is vile. Someone who loves himself, he's all teeth. I still like their music, but after seeing Then Jericho, this lot are pathetic. they've got no go in them at all.
I mean, talk about a terrible thing to say, after seeing Then Jericho, this lot are pathetic. I mean, that's the worst insult ever, isn't it? It really is.
I question whether these really all did go into the gig, all of these people, because not a lot of people seem to like them, but Ashley, 17, it was a bit screamy bopperish. And Marty Pellow's backside's awful. It really filled his jeans. Ugh. But I suppose all the little girls go mad over him.
There's a lot of talk over his bottom, isn't there?
There is.
Yeah. More than his singing or anything else, really. It's all about Marty Pellow's bum.
They moan about how many ballads are played as well. I never thought of Wet, Wet, Wet as a very ballady group, but apparently so.
Yeah, and there's a little group of fans who've all got posters, T-shirts, things like that. Denise, 15. Holly, 15. Helen, 15. Cheryl, 16. All jumping about and shrieking at the same time. Brilliant, amazing. Ooh, Marty. Ew. He's so cute. He's so lovely. His teeth, that smile, his hairstyle, the dancing, those eyes, all crinkly around the edges. His bum.
His bum again. It's like a boomerang, it always comes back to you.
Marty Pellow's bum keeps coming back.
His bumberang. I need to very, very quickly mention as well, in the Encyclopedia of Rock, there's a competition for a book called the Encyclopedia of Rock, and it mentions Spooky Tooth, Steel Eye Span, Electric Prunes, Vanilla Fudge, and it reminded me of, as a kid growing up reading smash hits, Mark Ellen and Tom Hibbert would often mention the Incredible String Band, an old kind of hippies band from the late 60s. And I, as a teenager, imagined that they were a made-up group. I had no way of knowing they were a real band. And it was years later that I saw one of their albums and I was like, oh, that's the band that was always in Smash Hits. I never knew that. So I guess lots of kids probably reading these, they'd think Spooky Tooth and, Vanilla Fudge would be made-up bands. But all real and, they were in there.
So the album reviews, I've already mentioned the Brian Ferry album. He gets the highest rating here, 9 out of 10. He wrote a lot of the songs on the album with Patrick Leonard, who was the guy who was working with Madonna as a songwriter and producer at that time. And you listen to some of the songs on the album and they could have come straight off True Blue or Who's That Girl, just absolutely sounding like that. But I didn't spot that at the time. Like I say, my ears were blind to all that sort of thing.
Your ears were blind?
Yeah, my ears were blind, it was Bry and it was the new album and I loved it. George Michael's Faith gets 6 out of 10. Aztec Camera, Love, 6 out of 10. UB40, the best of UB40, Volume 1, 9 out of 10. Shakin' Stevens, reviewed by Tom Hibbert, gets shaky as a rating.
That's a really funny review by Tom Hibbert. He was such a great writer. So Tom writes, you can always depend on Shaky, even if side 1 is a bit of a dud, featuring a couple of weedy ballads and the hoary old chestnut, What Do You Want to Make Those Eyes at Me For? And saved only by the barking mad majesty of a little boogie woogie, hem hem.
George Harrison appears again, his album Cloud 9, 5 out of 10. And Madonna's remix album, You Can Dance, 9 out of 10. I think that pretty much brings us to the end of this issue of Smash Hits. George Michael on the back with his lovely stubbly beard. So any closing thoughts about November 1987, what we've been looking at, and any memories that have been flooding back to you as a result of doing this?
I think in 87, I was probably really quite mean about pop. I thought I'd gone beyond it. And actually, there's some fantastic material in this magazine. And I've really enjoyed listening to the music again, reading the lyrics, reading, what people thought about those bands at the time. So, it's been really enlightening for me looking through this.
I think for me, similar really to Kath, that I'd kind of gone through my pop phase and this was the first time in a while I'd bought Smash Hits and, I would have skipped the Carol Decker thing and I would have skipped the Blue Mercedes thing and probably the Communards one as well, even though they're probably the most entertaining things to read in the magazine, and I would have probably just read the U2 thing and I'd have flicked through the singles and cut out, the picture of Morrissey and stuff. But, looking back, there's still some really funny stuff, and we always say this kind of era of Smash Hits, the writing is just so funny that even if you don't like the music that's been written about, you can get something from it. In this one, it's probably the artists and the groups that I like the least, that I've enjoyed the articles about the most, because it's just so good. And kind of looking back, I feel a bit bad that I was a bit snooty about music at that point.
But that's how you are when you're that age. I was very serious about it.
Yeah,
all.
Music's very important to you at that age. I think particularly in that period in the 80s, because it was an all-defining thing, and it was how you thought of yourself, it was how you related to your peers at the time.
Totally.
And now it's not as tribal, and I think young people today are happy listening to modern stuff and old stuff, and they don't always know, when the things that they're listening to are even from, what year it's from particularly, because it's just in the ether and it's just there. Whereas we were just, this is my thing, and I love the Smiths and you love Bowie and Brian Ferry and, whatever you liked, Kath, this is how you defined yourself. So you did take it very, very seriously. And as you get older, you can afford to lighten up a little bit about that. But I think for me, like I say, the defining thing about this issue is what we were talking about briefly before, about that divergence between the serious kind of, almost if you like, Live Aid music, the CD music, those kind of heritage acts, and the frothy pop stuff. And after they'd been together really all the way through in Smash Hits from 79 through to this point, this is where you're getting that fork in the road, really. Yeah.
I think that's the thing that I noticed most about this, that split and that redefining of what is Smash Hits and what is Q. And they were clearly going to have an effect on one another and what was in each of the mags. And there had been that common ground between them. But like you say, this is the point where clearly a decision was made and there's that split. What I also noticed was that there's a real air of dumper, particularly the ads. Some of the artists are in there. So you've got singles for Errol Brown, Donny Osmond, who amazingly was only 29.
I couldn't believe that. 29. Oh, God.
You know, like members of U2 were almost that age. Boy George as well, he was on the slide, as were the Style Council. And then you get that little bit in bits about, you know, Curiosity Killed the Cat, Level 42, and the Smiths have broken up. So these things that are happening, and artists that aren't relevant to Smash Hits being in there. So just, there was an air of dumper, les dumpers.
Yeah, a whiff of les dumpers.
Yeah, about it. So I think that was my main takeaway, is that, it's the end of an era for Smash Hits, and from this point on, the focus was absolutely completely on pop.
So, Kath, thank you very, very much indeed for not only inviting us round to your house, but also for some lovely cake and hot drinks, which was served as well.
Welcome. It's been a pleasure.
And for selecting this issue of Smash Hits, and for chatting on about it. Yeah. It's been lovely. Have you enjoyed your ride on the carousel?
Absolutely, 100%, yes.
Marvellous.
While we've been recording, I think a few more tweets have come in, have they?
Yes, I should just mention as well, someone called Pete Brasted didn't retweet it, but liked my tweet saying we're recording a new episode today. So we'll say hello to you, Pete, anyway. So thanks for listening. And until next time on the Giddy Carousel of Pop.
Come and say hello to us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You can find us. We're at Giddy Pop Pod, or just search for the Giddy Carousel of Pop, and our website as well, giddypoppod.home.blog, where you'll also find the links to the edition of Smash Hits that we've been looking at, along with those Spotify and YouTube playlists for that extra layer of experience. And we hope you can join us next time on the Giddy Carousel of Pop. Poor Aunt Phyllis. I lurched over to her and she was trying to keep me away, but I was sick over her taupe. Is it taupe or taupe? I can never remember.
Taupe, I think, isn't it?
I'd say taupe.
I'd say taupe, yeah.
But she was trying to keep me away, but I was sick all over her taupe. Is that what we decided? Taupe. I was going through this earlier. So how do you pronounce this word? Let me try that again. But I was.
It's lucky it's not mauve.
Yeah. I can handle that one. Yeah. I lurched over to her and she was trying to keep me away, but I was sick all over her taupe.
Taupe.
What is it?
Taupe. It's Bernie Taupin.
All right, Bernie Taupin.
Yeah.
I think you could pronounce it both ways.
Yeah. Say taupe if you want.
Either or. Taupe. Taupe. It's just one of those words that just doesn't fix in my head. Where is it now? Oh yeah, I was sick all over her.
Oh God!
I need a drink now. Yeah.
Shall we change its colour?
Yeah. A blue.
Beige.
A beige.
What colour is it?
I don't know actually.
Let's not go there.
Right. Compose myself. Taupe. Yeah?